So let's start off with the main one, though. Obviously, we have to go off with the pound for pound potentially number one. In my opinion, he is number one. But Naoya Inoue versus TJ Doheny. That was a fight that went down about 24 hours ago now. 4 a.m. my time yesterday on Tuesday. And it was a fight that, let me just be honest, I don't think it went as planned for anybody. That you could tell that, Inoue was not pleased with the way that fight ended. You could tell he was not, and I'll be honest, actually, when I was watching the fight, I almost felt like this was like a glorified sparring event in a sense for Inoue. It was something that I just didn't think he was all into it. I felt like it was hard for him to get up for this type of fight. And we all knew this. Doheny was not a guy that was going to beat him. Doheny was not a guy that had the potential to really beat him. I mean, it was boxing, everybody has a shot, but it wasn't going to happen. This wasn't a big fight, right? And so it was clearly a tune-up fight. And I just feel like it was very tough for a guy that's been a world champion now for over 10 years, has accomplished what Inoue has accomplished already. Him trying to fight in this situation, this scenario, just didn't seem like it was what he could get up for. It wasn't the same as some of the other big fights he's been a part of. And it makes sense to a certain extent, but, the truth is that he went in there and he dominated the fight and ends up being stopped because of an apparent back injury. So he ended up defending his undisputed championship as to a bantamweight. That being said, though, the injury was odd. Obviously, was it something that was just a build-up over time of what resulted in Doheny going down with the injury? Was it a situation in which, it was just the one punch? We don't necessarily have an answer. But regardless of it, Inoue gets out of it a good victory, takes barely any damage. And you could tell he really was in that with the emphasis to work on his defense. And he wasn't really able to do that against Neri, obviously. But a win is a win, even though it was clear not what he wanted to have happen. Now, in regards to the Doheny injury, we don't have 100% confirmation yet what the injury is or was. But what we do know is that in the dressing room, he said the issue was something with the muscle above his hip and that it resulted in his leg going dead. So, hopefully the injury goes well. Obviously, didn't look very good. You could tell he was in a lot of pain, had to get carried out of the ring and all these different aspects and wasn't look very good in the dressing room. So, hopefully, and prayers after him that he's going to be able to recover from that injury and be okay. Obviously, he's up there in age as well, so who knows if he's going to return or not, depending on how severe the injury is. But what you have to ask then is what's next for Inoue? Because after the fight, Bob Arum came out and he spoke about what he has in plans for Inoue. And he said that the fight in which we're all going to be excited about this one is that Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani is the fight that's being eyed for a future fight at the Tokyo Dome, according to Bob Arum. Arum also said that Inoue's next fight will likely be the IBF mandatory challenger Sam Goodman on December 24th in Tokyo. Then the plan is for him to share a car with Nakatani in April in Las Vegas, with the idea being to match them down the line. Okay, a lot to dissect there. And in all honesty, that was probably the biggest, most shocking, most exciting aspect was Bob Arum announcing that portion. Because when we watched that fight as boxing fans, we knew what the outcome was going to be. We knew that Inoue was going to walk away with the win there. That wasn't shocking. Now, there could be upsets, of course, but I don't think anybody expected that. If anything, people probably thought the fight was going to get done earlier than it did. However, the fight concludes, and it wasn't a very good fight, but the conclusion of it is that Arum comes out and he announces the thing that Americans specifically have been looking at. First of all, yes, he's going to go fight one more time in Tokyo, is what it is. It's fine. The Sam Goodman thing I'll talk about in a second. Actually, no, let's get to that right now. Sam Goodman won. Let's just say this. I'm not a fan of that. I don't like it. I don't think it's much different than Doheny. Yes, he's better than Doheny. But is it a fight that Inoue can get up for, get excited for? I don't think so. But then again, how many guys really are there? The only guy I'd rather have specifically is MJ. And if MJ is going to do anything, I think he should go fight Elijah Pierce if that doesn't work out. But essentially what I'm looking at is does Inoue eventually move up and shortly move up? Because right now, this does not seem to be like there's too many more big fights to be made. Stephen Fulton rematch, you could make that happen. There's a couple other things. But when Bob Arum comes down and says this news is that he's going to go to Las Vegas next year in April, that's exciting. Because so many people in America have said, we don't get to watch Inoue. We don't know who he is. He's not really that good. All these different, javelin talks and whatnot. Him coming to America would be huge for his American brand. Whether that matters or not in a lot of people's eyes, it obviously is new eyes, and he's going to become a big fan here, big fan favorite in America. So that will be huge news. And then the biggest one, though, Naoya Inoue versus Junta Nakatani is going to be one of the biggest fights that you could possibly make at this point in time. There's not too many fights that you could take the talent of two guys, the potential of it being, homegrown talent, Japanese guys fighting each other. That has a chance to be huge fighting them out in the Tokyo Dome. Like I said, there's a handful of fights you could probably say you'd rather have than that one. Very, very limited amounts there. That is one of the biggest fights you can make in boxing, and having that fight come to fruition would be huge. Now, does that happen anytime soon? I don't know. There wasn't a specific date. There could it be by the end of next year? Would be interesting to watch and find out. But that was really the biggest two things I'd say I took away from that fight. A weird night overall, weird fight. But if that is true, I would absolutely love to see Inoue versus Nakatani. We all know that could be the fight of the year. That could be one of the biggest fights you could possibly make in boxing and would be huge. The numbers that would do at the Tokyo Dome would be insanity. So that is the one that I'm most excited for. However, I must say this. As if it wasn't already solidified, there are three guys that are your pound-for-pound top guys in boxing. Alexander Usyk, who's 22-0 with 14 KOs. Terrence Bud Crawford, who's 41-0 with 31 KOs. And Naoya Inoue, who is 28-0 with 25 KOs. There is a drastically large gap between 3 and 4. If your pound-for-pound top 3 does not conclude and have those 3 in there, that pound-for-pound list is wrong. Now, the order in which those 3 are there completely can be debated and disputed. Any order involving those 3, I'm A-okay with. The gap between those 3 is so slim, between the resume, the talent, all these different aspects, they are so good. So I'm fine with any order. You want to put Bud, Alexander Usyk, Inoue, Bud, Usyk, Crawford, whatever you want. Bud, Usyk, Inoue, you do it however you want. But those are the top 3 guys. So that means I have to ask then, how could you possibly get into that next spot to close the gap? Well, we do have the answer coming up in a few short months when we're going to have the big fight to unify, make undisputed fight for light heavyweight. We have Bivol versus Beterbiev. That's going to be the fight that is the fight of the year, in my opinion. I think that's going to be an exciting fight. And the winner of that, if it is done by a dominant win, I think the gap gets closed. And maybe even we could say that one of the two, the winner of that fight, can become number 4 or potentially move his way in there. So that's the one we're going to really get into that group. But the top 3 pound for pound at boxing right now, Alexander Usyk, Terrence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, those 3 guys are leaps and bounds better than everybody else. They are elite. They are accomplished. They have everything you need to accomplish and done in boxing. They are 3 legends of the sport. They are legitimate. So that's what I want to say to wrap up that fight about Inoue's fight from Tuesday morning. Other one I want to get into from this weekend was done on Saturday, was the Diego Pacheco fight. This was an interesting fight as well, because Pacheco ends up with the fight. He has a body shot KO in the 6th round, and it was a good performance. Nothing wrong with it. He had a good performance, came out better than his last couple of ones. He looked good. He looked sharp. He had a dominant win, and he got the KO, which is huge. A lot of people didn't know if that's going to for sure happen, but he got the win, and that was huge for them. Therefore, you have to ask, though, what is next for Diego Pacheco? He is young. He's got a bright future. What is next for Diego Pacheco? Well, Eddie Hearn, he said that he expects the WBO to call this mandatory fight in 2025 with Canelo Alvarez. That's not the fight I want to see. That seems like a very similar situation to what we've been getting with Canelo. It's these, subpar fights against young guys that's up and coming. I don't want that. What I think needs to happen is that I want to see him go fight a couple guys to work his way up so he's actually ready to potentially challenge a guy like Canelo. How do you do that, you ask? Well, I think I like to see him have 2 victories against 2 of the following. Either Munguia and Billy, Berlanga, or Caleb Plant. I think if you can put them whatever order, however you want to base that, those would all be big fights I'd love to watch. If you can get victories over 2 of those guys, give him Canelo. That's A-okay with me. Now, I'm assuming that obviously the Benavidez is out of there. If he can get a fight with Benavidez, A-okay with that too. He'd be obviously added into that group. That's what I want to see what's next for Diego Pacheco. He seems legit. Love that performance. It was a good-looking performance from him, and I think that's a great way to build upon what he did because he looked good on Saturday night. Then next up, the last fight I want to discuss from this weekend, Elijah Pierce versus Jose Sanmartin. That was on Friday night, and Elijah Pierce, he defeats him by unanimous decision, and he improves the record of 20-2, 16 KOs. I don't think it was a performance exactly how we wanted it to be. he was on the show a couple of weeks ago and we discussed the upcoming fight. I don't think it was exactly how he had planned, but he got the win nonetheless, and that's what matters. It was a good performance. Wasn't anything special. The one thing I will say is that could it have been an early KO? I don't know. Was Sanmartin just in a sense playing off the low body hit, which still shocked me. I do not know how it was a low body hit. It was not even close to a low body. It was one of the weirdest calls I've seen in some time, but that one, absolutely not. However, could he got the KO there, or was Sanmartin just kind of playing it off? I don't know. But regardless, 20-2 now is his record. What's next for him? I think the one that he keeps talking about, MJ. Let him get MJ. I just mentioned it a minute ago. If MJ is supposed to go fight and has opportunity to fight Inoue, he's going to make that move, and everybody would. And there's no issue with that. However, if for him the move is that MJ is not going to get Inoue next, Elijah Pierce, MJ makes too much sense. Both the top 2 ranked guys, and they deserve to fight each other. I think it'd be a big fight, an entertaining fight, and the winner of that could then potentially be the guy that challenged Inoue in the future. So that's what I want to say about that one. 3 overall big fights that involved highly ranked guys this past week, and so that's the breakdown I've got for you guys from the Friday, Saturday, and Tuesday morning of boxing fights of this past week.